her if she wants to do it again.
All right. Yeah, and I can if Lori doesn't either way.
Okay, you want to open up or?
Yeah, welcome everybody. Excited to have you all here this evening. We're just going to be running through the resonance scan. So last week we did the aura and we showed you how to do that remotely. And now we're going to run through the resonance and take you through that process. And then next week, we're going to put together the whole formula of how, when you're working with someone, then how do you follow up with them and how do you work with them with the frequencies that you're sending and all of those good things. So Ken has graciously offered to, share his phone screen and do it step by step so you could follow along if you like, or take screenshots. And yeah, we're just going to jump in with how to do a resonance scan.
Does that sound fun? I think it sounds fun.
It's always fun because we always learn something new.
I think it's a blast. So, okay, well, let's get this party started. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you're back for round 2. And so what we did before, let's just do a little recap. Last week, we did the aura scan and then set up a client. So remember how to do that? That was, we went in and set up the client, all the content that was really necessary, essentially to create the quantum entanglement, right, with the client and the Healy protocol. So that's a really important step, is that we get the proper content in there for the client. And remember that content, it was, of course, a picture of the person, their name, how they're known within their world. So remember, if it doesn't have to be what's on your birth certificate, but even if you have nicknames, by the way, if the most of your world only knows you by a certain name, like my family calls me Kenny. My business associates call me Ken. People who know me on Facebook call me Kenneth because that's what it says. But for the most part, I kind of average it out and call it, Ken. So that's my name on there. So anyway, that's the point, is to be identified by how you show up or how you're known in the world. When, in terms of birth date that you came to this world, and where, in terms of birthplace, and then gender is one of the criteria there. So some of the basic stuff. And then, of course, Healy takes a vibrational signature of you. That's what done with the quantum sensor. And then that is saved into your client record as well. So same content. So when we're doing a resonance scan, so I'm going to go ahead and bring my phone on screen, and we will need a participant that wants to be on camera. And I know if you guys are busy in the background doing stuff, that's great. It's great to be able to hear this and be able to review this. And of course, the recording will be available. So anybody want to volunteer for being on camera and being our client? Anybody?
Oh, Kuipu's offering.
Kuipu, okay, awesome. Great. So what I'll do is then I'm going to do like I did with Lori last time. Remember, I took a screenshot, a picture with my device to get that into our into the client record. So here's what I'm going to do. And in order for you to show up on my smart device as your picture, then I'll need you to actually say something. So then it keys you as the speaker and I'll be able to take that screenshot. But let's get you in the center of the screen so you can see yourself on the screen there. Let's get you kind of centered up there, and then there we go. All right, and when you're ready, go ahead and I'm going to take a screenshot. Say something, say hello.
Hey. Aloha.
I got it. I got it. Okay, that's a great picture. I love it. Oh my gosh, beautiful smile and everything. I love this. So now I got a screenshot, and then I'll be bringing my phone online here in just a second. Of course, when we do the screenshot kind of stuff, it is, it's a little blurry, but it's still great representation. Okay. So we're going to save that 1 minute while I save that to my photos. Okay. So let's bring the phone online and we'll get this started here. And I want to also point out something too. It's kind of cool is that if you don't know, that we're actually able to use the Blue Dot program, the Heal Advisor Analyze app, while the Healy's plugged in. So in other words, I think I mentioned this on one of the Tech Tip Tuesdays or one of the other calls, that if you notice on the bottom of your Healy, there are 3 ports, 2 of which are the wires for the electrodes to operate the microcurrent. The other one is the charging port, and they're put in a certain position strategically on purpose so that you can't plug the electrodes in at the same time as you plug in the charging cord. And the reason is because the Healy itself is a class 2 medical device. And so it's got to be the design, the shape, all of the connections, everything have to be within the regulations of a medical device. And for a medical device that's used by like an OTC, over the counter kind of environment by the general public, you can't have the device plugged into a 120 volt outlet at the same time as you have wires going to the body, right? It's just in freak accidents, that current transfer could go from the wall outlet into the body. And so they don't manufacture devices for that with that ability. So that's why you can't plug in the charger and the wires to your body at the same time. Does that make sense? I mean, that's just a safety protocol. I know many people say, well, I want to be able to charge it. No, this is for your own good, right? We don't want that to happen. Okay. But since we're not plugged into any of the wires when we're doing anything with the resonance function or the aura function, or even the coaching module, then we can actually have it plugged in and being charged while it's happening. I don't recommend that that's the only way you use it. In other words, you don't just leave it plugged in and charged all the time. Okay, so here comes my phone. Bring it on board. And we're going to open up the app. And so I have all the apps kind of configured in one little micro window there, so it's easy to access. We're going to go right into the Resonance app, the blue dot. And at the bottom of the screen down there, there are the different, if we click on the center heartbeat looking deal, there is the 2 different modules, the resonance analysis and the aura analysis. The aura is what we did last week. The resonance analysis is the one we're going to do this week. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a client. So the little house on the bottom, click on that. And we're going to go clients, top of the screen where it says the little plus, add new client. We're going to click on that. Drop down window shows what kind of clients we can have. And obviously we are going to put a person on there. I'm going to bring in the photograph that we just took earlier. So this is going to ask to go to my photos. So I'm going to choose from the gallery. And the very first one should be our beautiful client right here. Look at that. You see, we're going to choose that and it's going to put it right into the center section. I love it. Okay. So you see the content that we could put in here. The very first line item is to record a vibration. Now, I like to put the information in first and then record the vibration. Again, we're going to start putting the content or the coordinates of this particular client. You know, it really is kind of a galactic or a quantum coordinate that we're going to be inputting. So the name, the date of birth, the place of birth, those things are starting to narrow down the information field into who we're actually going to be working with. Okay. So first one up here, name, and I'm going to have to borrow the spelling. Let me see. Hang on.
I put it in the chat, Ken.
Oh, you're so awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm just going to write it down here because I will be referring back and forth to it just in case. Give me 1 second here. And I'm going to look in the chat 1 second. All right. Awesome. Thank you for putting all this content in there for me.
My pleasure.
So gracious, Kwipu.
Well, you know, we want to be as accurate as possible here. So, you know, getting all the little, I'm being from the U.S. Oops, being from the U.S. You know, we don't have a lot of extraordinary type of spellings, or I mean, sometimes it's getting a little bit more interesting, but you know, I love other countries and how some of the spellings and phenolics, sorry, are super cool. Let's see, Latino. Okay.
That doesn't have to go in the last name slot?
It does. Yeah, I'm just gonna, I'll do that and paste it in there. So, okay. So you see there's first name, last name, that look good. And then it shows the display as, it automatically pulls the display as in there. I can edit that if we want. I mean, it's, you know, if you want it to be something different. Under this birth date area here, I always recommend that you choose the day first. Okay, so the day of the month, right, which in her case is the 3rd. Then we go up here and click on that little blue arrow next to the year, because now it opens up this kind of a scrolling capability to move around much more quickly. Otherwise, I've had people go month after month, all the way back year after year. That's kind of silly, right? All right. And then I get carried away with my scrolling. All right, there we go. And we want to be in right there, February, right? Okay. Does that look right? Yay.
Yes, it does.
Okay. And then the place, beautiful Hawaii.
Mhm.
Just so you guys are probably noticing, I mean, my typing skills are super fast here. So hope you can. All right. So now here's another thing I would like to add is right here. You do not need to put email, phone number, address, all that kind of stuff. Now, if you're going to be emailing, and I highly suggest, in fact, that's what we're going to be talking about next week, is utilizing the results from this scan to create more contact with the client and more interaction and again, more assistance and gifts. I suggest that we put the email here in this context area. Can you, let's see, do you want to send me, you can send it privately or you can put it in the chat. We can put that email in there if that's okay. Because it should save it and we'd be able to access it later when we do the scans. So the cool thing about what the resonance does and the aura does is it generates a PDF report of the results of your scan. And that's fantastic because sometimes you want the person, well, actually, I suggest always you allow the person to digest that content in their own space and time, right? Because it's a lot and quite often it's quite personal. So it's good to let them do that kind of thing. All right, so we'll put the email address in here. And then we'll be able to just access that from the client record.
So then it might be a good idea to use Kuipu next week. As we
Yeah.
break down the formula since it'll already be in here.
Is that okay with you, Kuipu? It's
Sure.
okay. Yeah. Awesome.
Sure.
Awesome. Yay. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Okay. Does that look right, everybody?
Mhm.
Yep. Okay. So now let's go back up and remember what I said, record vibration. So we essentially have all the content for the coordinates and that little plus right there is where we're going to record the vibration. Now, because we're doing this remotely, what I do is I bring Healy right here into the screen and I like to be able to be present with the person. So in other words, this is why it's nice I want them on the camera so that I can be present with them. They can be present with not necessarily me, but the activity we're doing together, right? And then putting our attention on just the present moment. I put my attention on her. She puts her attention really just on the present moment. You don't have to put it on me or anything else, just being present. What's that mean? I like to define that because sometimes people aren't sure what it means to be present. And what that really means, it means that you're not concerned about what's going on later tonight, what happened yesterday, what's for dinner, worrying about your emails. You're just centering yourself and maybe just being involved with your breath, just breathing in, breathing out, following it in and out. And that way it keeps the mind centered and present. It only takes a few seconds to do this. Okay. Are you ready, my friend?
I am ready.
Okay, here we go. Just you and the present moment and begin. Oops, sorry. Being present is going to find it in this present moment. Just give it a second. It's going to find whatever Heelys are turned on, by the way. So we want to make sure that we choose the proper serial number. It's on the back of the device. Okay, here we go. Perfect. See how quick that was? Super fast. Now take a look at the client record. Now we have her picture, name, place of birth, date of birth, and see that little waveform right there? That's Kawipu. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, the top of the screen, that little check mark up there, here's the significant part. We can do all this, and if we get out of this screen, nothing's saved. We have to go to that check mark at the top right of the screen. Click on that check mark. There we go. Now, see, it asks us, client's been saved, and it's wanting to know, should we synchronize to the cloud? Now, I suggest always saying yes. This is a Healy cloud, secured cloud. Remember, this is attached to your master key, 4096-bit encrypted code. So nobody's going to break into this and get any of her information. So I always say, okay, can we put that in there? Is that okay? Yes or no? Yes? Okay. And now we're going to go to a scan. It asks us another question. Client's been saved. Now, do you want to perform a new analysis now? Of course we do. Yes, we do. So we click on yes, brings us back to the analysis page, and we can choose resonance aura. This time we're doing a resonance, and brings us to the resonance analysis screen. So the first part of this analysis is that we're going to set essentially a permission. Okay, the focus. It's called the focus, and it's kind of a way of asking a question and giving permission at the same time. So in other words, we're asking the quantum field, the information field, we're asking God, whatever your beliefs are, your spiritual side, your higher self, we're going to ask the question, with what do I have the greatest resonance now? And the meaning behind that is that if you were sitting next to your higher power and you were just asking the question, what would best serve me? What would best align me? What would best work for me right now? And then you just stay open and aware to allow that to happen, right? It's being objective. You're not going to actually necessarily put any requirement on there or any expectation on there. You're just present and asking the question and letting the objective field answer this question. Does that make sense? We really want to take us, personalities, beliefs, all of behaviors, all that out of the equation and let the system work optimally. And that's, again, what that question helps us do. So it's kind of asking the question and then kind of giving permission for us to just release and let go of an outcome and see what happens. Below that is, now I'll also add here, once we get experience with using this system, and maybe you're not trying to correct or heal anything. Maybe you're looking at trying to something involved with success or relationships or whatever. You can actually say a different focus statement here and keep that intention in your mind. You can do that, okay? Because it's not actually reading that focus statement. So this whole system doesn't actually read that focus statement. This is your job. Our job as part of the interactive system. Where we're putting our energy is where we're putting where our attention is, where our energy is. So we're wanting to put our attention on possibility. Okay. So that's what we're doing for now. Next is the continuing on to the database selection. Now I want to give you guys a little glimpse. Oh my gosh, of the database, the databases that we have available here, Alaskan Gym Elixirs, the one that says all Healy programs, that's what we're going to focus on tonight. But look at this, Australian bush flower, right? Bach flower remedies. This is creative homeopathy psyche. Now, this is what Dr. Steve was talking about earlier today. Huge database. You see the little gray number in parentheses after the name of the database? That's the number of entities in that database. That's a lot of particular components to that database that it will analyze. And then we scroll down, keep going. Then we have the individual Healy microcurrent programs, in addition to other, maybe you don't have some of the subscriptions that Healy has allowed available. That's in here too. Okay, because you can always still vibrate the frequencies within any of Healy's realm into your field, irregardless if you have it on your pink dot or not. Okay. Keep going down. We even have all of the programs associated with the watch, which has a number of other pages, by the way. And then I Ching, which is again one of the subjects we was talking about today. Different minerals, and then different vital substances down there. I want to show you something. You see the little eye on the far right, that little blue dot with the eye in it. At the bottom down there where it says vital substances, if I click on the eye, it shows me all 76 different components within that database. Look at that. So there's 76 things in there because that was in that little gray number. You see that? All right. A lot of stuff in there. So that's how you can find out what's in there. I click on the white check mark at the top. Now that puts it into the database, but I don't want that. So I can click on the vital substance again. It brings back the menu. You see how that worked? Okay. So in order to get out of where it's giving you the list of what's in that particular database, you have to click on the check mark top right of the screen, and then re-click on the database that you've chosen, and then it gets you back to this menu here. Okay, so what I said earlier, we're going to choose the all Healy programs. Again, if we want to take a look, see that 25 right there? We want to take a look, we hit that little eye. Now it pulls in all of the pages. These are pages of programs. And there are up to 12 programs on each page. So that's a lot of different programs here. And then we do the math again. There's up to 300, maybe sometimes 400 different frequencies in each program that it can choose from. So there's a lot of content here. All right. Again, click on the little check mark at the top right. And now you see that it's populated that into the category. And we're ready to start the analysis. So the pink bar, I click on that. And that brings up the window, what I call of focus and intention. Again, another spot in which we are going to harness our mind. Okay, we're going to bring it into the present moment. And the fingerprint that's on the screen right there is not any FBI database taking a look at your fingerprint. It has nothing to do with that. The fingerprint is simply a picture, an icon that is kind of giving you an idea of what to do. Right? In other words, you see a fingerprint there, you go, okay, I guess I put my finger on there. It doesn't have to be your thumb, doesn't have to be your index, doesn't have to be your pinky. It can even be your nose, by the way. But the point of it is that it's asking you to be present again. And Healy designed this so that if you place your finger there, you're obviously putting it on the touch screen of a smart device, which does what? It activates something right on that smart device, that touch screen. So what this particular fingerprint does in the background is it activates the scan. So what I want to do here is what I'm going to do with you is that I'm going to be the surrogate, right? I'm going to actually put my finger on the screen, but I'm going to put all my attention on you. Okay. So you and I will just simply be together on this moment, and your part to play in this again is just to focus on your breath, focus on the present moment. Nothing else exists. Okay. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. Awesome. I always love that. I feel my heart opening, by the way, whenever I do that, when I'm sitting here putting it my intention on someone else, it's just like, I feel this lovely pulsation. Awesome. Okay. So now we have, what it's done is it's taken that 25 different pages of programs. Remember I said there was 25 components within that database, and it's narrowed it down to the top 5. Okay. Now, take note here, the top 5 pages. Remember what I said? There's up to 12 programs within each page. So it's still kind of a vast amount of information, right? So it's still kind of vague, but now at least we know that there's content on this first page right here. And we can kind of break down what it's telling us. So it's chosen, our database was all Healy programs. It's chosen from the resource pool, the sleep programs. Okay, so something within that page is necessary for our client. You see that? And then it assigns kind of a relevance, right? It's relevance in percentage. Sometimes you can see some of these pages that are, up in the 80s or 90s, but sometimes they're in the lower percentages. It still segregates them by relevance or importance. So here we go. The top one is the Healy sleep program. And I like when I'm working with someone like this, so we're doing it in real time, I actually write them down on my little notes in my background. I will write them down because it makes it easier for me to refer back to them later on when we get to what we're going to call the recipe, and that different way of increasing the number of moments in which we go back and have a conversation with the individual, with the client. Okay, the second one, the bioenergetic vitalization. Now, this is what we were just talking about before. This is one of the favorites of Doc Steve, which is where it's integrating and interacting with stem cells, right? Okay, so we call it the bioenergetic vitalization. For some of us that are old timers, it used to be called bioenergetic revitalization. We got that re out of there. Now it's just vitalization. Okay, next on the list is the well-being programs. All right. And this is new, by the way. So you see it that even the new programs that we've been given are now being integrated into the database selection. And we're getting, the latest and greatest. Gold Cycle is next. And Meridians 1 is the 5th one. And you see the different percentage. The percentage, now some of them are exactly the same, like the last two. You see that? So the relevancy or the importance is equal amongst these two pages. Doesn't mean less necessary, just equal. Okay. So we want to make sure that we're looking at all that. Now, and that was Meridians number 1. Okay. At the bottom of the page, there is a actions tab. And now also I want you to take a peek there at the numbers after the percentage. Okay, so that's a time and date stamp, by the way. So now this particular list, all of the contents are date and time stamped. So if I was to do this analysis again, remember each present moment is a bit different. And we're still working with the same client, but what's going on within the mind or within the awareness alters from moment to moment. And I like to remind folks from an epigenetic perspective, we're different because there's 800,000 cells per second that are being changed. So that's a lot of difference every single second. So just know that it's not always going to be the same. In fact, it will never be the same, usually. All right. Now, at the bottom there, we have a selection where we can actually select different scans we've done. If I click on that, there's just only one. So there's really no other options, right? So we click on the actions tab. Here is where we're able to create a report, a PDF of this particular list. And every time we do a scan, it generates what Healy calls a list and then puts it in the client record. So we can take this PDF, generate a PDF. We can also use the vibrate function right there. That's another tab that we can click on. And we click on vibrate function. It's going to allow us to send all of this content via what's called the noise generator, or essentially the quantum sensor, into the client's field, right? That's a lot of content, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. You just want to do it for a short period of time. But what we're going to do right now first is we're going to show a PDF. I'll click on that. It'll generate a report. This is what it looks like. You can hardly see it, but there's a little shaded arrow at the bottom of the screen down there that's kind of flashing. I can click on that from here and we can scroll down through the content, and it gives us the different, basically the different pages that it found. At the top right of the screen, there's the connect symbol. We tap on that, and then it allows us to email it or text it or whatever. I suggest that you email it because sometimes these are too big to send as files when you're trying to text them. So let's see if we have the, oh, I didn't write your email down. Let me see. It's still in the chat. There we go. Okay. No, see, it's the email function is another app within your smart device. Okay. The app that is running this particular scan is independent of anything within your phone. So because I don't have her email in my database on my phone as my contacts, it's not pulling it up. Even though I did put it into her client record, it's segregated between the Blue Dot app and my email app. So I have to actually put it in manually. There's been talk about trying to add that in with a new update, but there's so many implications around privacy and that kind of thing. I don't know if we're ever going to get that. I thought maybe there was something about that last update, but I'm now seeing that that is not the case. Okay, so there we go. In the subject line, I like to put resonance scan. And this is a very generalistic one. So I'll just put generic. So it's kind of got all of those pages. And then I hit the blue arrow and off it goes. All right. So could you tell us, Karipo, if you've gotten the email maybe while we're here? Should have came through.
Let me check.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, I'm going to go back by hitting the X at the top left. It takes us right back to the actions page, or actually the result page. And if I'm doing this remotely with someone like this, and I want to try to, in this moment, serve them a little bit better and maybe give them an imprint of in their information field of this content, so that I can work with them a little bit stronger later. I can put, remember I said there's 5 pages, and on those 5 pages up to 12 programs, I can actually put that content essentially in their blueprint in the information field. In other words, this is very distinct content, but it's a lot. But I can put it in the information field. And then when we start to, what I like to call, create the recipe and be more specific in terms of page after page after page, then I can reinforce that content, the big block of content I put in there, later with more refined signatures that I'm going to put in there. Does that make sense? So what we're going to do first, so did that come through?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Well, it's in the information field. It's getting there, right? So it's on its way. Okay. So now let's go into the next phase, and I'm going to go ahead and on the actions tab, I'm going to click on the vibrate. And is it okay if I send this content to your information field for just a minute and 20 seconds?
Yes, please.
Is that okay? So that
Yes.
you notice here at the bottom, how did I choose a minute and 20 seconds? Well, look at the bottom of the screen under select transmission duration. It's the default 1 minute and 20 seconds. So what that's going to do again is going to put the content, all these frequencies, into her information field, right? And then later on, we're going to reinforce very specific ones. So what do we do next? When now I want to demonstrate too, if I click that little drop down arrow next to the 1 minute and 20 seconds, I have options I can adjust from a fraction of a second at the very top, 890Z. That's a fraction of 1 second. And then all the way up to, I've got 8 hours and 48 minutes and 40 seconds, or manually, I can click on the manual. If I click on manual function, I can set days, hours, and minutes of my own choosing. Okay. I don't know if I want to go into, maybe we can later, about the what do we choose? How do we choose that? How do we know? There is a chart that's recommended by Healy in terms of how to send information to the field and how long. It's based on some variables. In this case, we're sending a lot of content. I don't recommend sending a lot of content like this for more than at 1 minute and 20 seconds. Okay, just because if there's something in there that's going to have physical, biological effects on our client, we don't want to intensify that for a long period of time. Let's just do a small amount of time. Let's get feedback from the client, and then we can move forward from there. But this is why it's kind of set at 1 minute and 20 seconds. That's the default recommendation, and we'll start from there. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and hit the start. Now, again, being present, this is important. And for 1 minute and 20 seconds, we're just going to all collectively put our awareness on Kuipu right here. And then she's going to be just receiving. Does that sound fun? Here we go. You ready? Hopefully it's still connected to Healy. Here we go. Let's check. Here we go. Okay, there we go. I love that feeling, by the way.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Did you guys notice at the beginning, and maybe if you review the recording, you'll see that there was a couple of waveforms, kind of the bluish colored one and the pinkish or reddish colored one. So those are two simultaneous waveforms that, if you noticed earlier, when we were taking a reading and putting the signature into the client's record, and there was that little waveform, it was blue. So that's a reading from the client through the quantum sensor into the client record. Now, that's the blue form. The red form is actually the transmission to the client. So you see that that's a two-way interactive transfer. So it's reading and writing, constantly interacting between the client information and giving the frequencies back and forth. Isn't that great? It's cool, isn't it? Okay. So the next, we're going to move through the next phase a little bit quicker, but I'm going to show you what we're going to do to now take each of these pages and then refine them into what I call the recipe. And then next week, we'll talk about how to utilize that. Sound fun?
Yep.
Okay. So at the bottom of the screen, again, we're going to do a scan. So that's where we do it from. Click on the heartbeat at the bottom of the screen, go back to resonance, and we pick our client. There she is right there. And this time it's the same intention, the same focus statement there about being open and allowing the information field to give us feedback from an objective position. Same statement, keep that in your mind. But now when we go to continue the database selection, we click on the top choice that first evaluation presented to us. Remember what that was? It was sleep, right? Yep. So we scroll down and we find the Healy sleep program. And it is in alphabetical, so there it is. And now take a note there, after the sleep programs in the parentheses is a number 4. So there's only 4 different programs within that page or within that category. And this system is going to pick the top 5. So it's going to pick all 4 of those in some particular order. So we're going to get all 4. All right. So we choose that as our database, click on it. Now you see it imported it into our category. And then we're ready to start the analysis. Remember how we did that before? I'm the surrogate. I'll put my finger on the screen, but we're all going to place our attention on Kawipu, and then you're going to just be in the present moment with your breath. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. All right, there we go. You notice how it went a bit faster? Remember the first scan? Because the first scan was scanning a lot of content. Remember all those pages, all those frequencies, all those programs. Yeah. Okay, so here's what it came up with. The number 1 on the list is fine flow. Again, these have distinct reasons they're picked for her. Okay. Balanced sleep. Sleep, SYST. That means systemic. In other words, sleep system wide. So in other words, the entire body, right? If it were saying sleep acute, then it's focusing on a very specific component of the sleep, but this is systemic. So in other words, we're working with the entire organism. I call it an organism, it's the body. And then we have bed rest. Okay. All right. Now I can, again, I have the same opportunities here with the actions tab that I can click on actions, and I can either send a PDF report or vibrate. We're just going to move through these for purposes of time. And these are all going to be saved within the client record in the lists. So anytime we can go back and send these later on, anytime. Okay. So back down at the bottom of the screen in the center, the heartbeat, clicking on that because we're going right back to do another scan with a different database this time. Again, the resonance analysis, pick our client, same intention or focus statement with what do I have the greatest resonance now. But this time we're going to choose the second grouping on the list, which is bioenergetic vitalization. See it right down there, bioenergetic vitalization. And now we're going to do that analysis. Okay, are you ready? Here we go. All right. So here's our choices. Here's what it picked for you. And now these are things, remember, they're in order of priority as in represented by the percentage. And then chosen for very specific things that are necessary to be worked on, or frequencies that are necessary to be given to the body, to the client for alignments. Okay. Pineal gland. I just write these down, by the way, myself, because if we want to talk about them later, then we can. Okay. And region 3. Okay. Now that was page number 2. Let's go over and pull in page number 3. And page number 3 was the well-being database. So we're going to go to that database. And did you notice the blue waveform again when it's doing the analysis? Again, it's reading from her information field. We want well-being. So let's go down here. Right here, well-being. Click on that. All right, Kawipo, are you ready? Here we go. Excellent. And there's only 3 programs within that database. So of course it's going to pick all 3, but in a very distinct order. All right. Perhaps not what we would think within our mind, but definitely within the objective mind. Okay. All right, here we go. Let's go back to at the bottom in the center, that little heartbeat. We're going to click on the resonance scan again, this time to the 4th category, which is the gold cycle page. Remember our statement? Got that in your mind? Okay. Moving down to the gold cycle page. Oops, past it. There we go. Okay, and are you ready? Here we go. Excellent. Okay, again, so on the gold cycle page, there are 7 programs and it picks the top 5 here. And it's balance, energy, care, pure. And you can go to the owner's manual, and you may have heard that today on the What's Up Wednesday call about where to find more information about these programs. So you can go to that owner's manual and that 41 pages of information, and you can get more detail. Okay. Now, the last one on the list is Meridians 1. So we go back to the resonance scan. Again, pick our client. And I'm going through this kind of fast, but you're kind of getting the idea of how it works. Okay. Again, keeping that intention in your mind. We'll move down to the Meridians 1. There's 2 pages. So there's Meridians 1 and Meridians 2. We'll click on Meridians 1. And Kuipu, are you ready? Here we go. All right, there we go. And so now it picked the relevant top 5 programs for her in very specific order, and giving assignments of percentages in terms of relevancy. Okay. All right. So, so that's basically it in a nutshell. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing unless you guys want to add any questions. I wasn't paying attention to the chat.
No, there haven't been any questions there, Ken.
Okay.
I have a question. This is Dorothy. If I see that some of the percentages are coming back below 50, what happens? Do you vibrate on that if it's below 50?
Yeah. So the relevancies here, even if it's below 50, it's still. So here's what happens. Sometimes we're working on things in our lives, right? There's always going to be something that we can align, because we're still living in a 3-dimensional space and time. And the body is always subjected to the environment. Environment definitely gives an opportunity or disorder. So, so it's very relevant that I mean, something's going to show up. And so it may not be up in the 80s or 90s in the percentile, but still it's showing us things that we can work on. These are just options. We don't have to do all of these things. And we'll talk about the recipe a little bit in regards to what we're actually, how we're going to work this through in terms of the various ways in which we communicate with the client. But everything that's showing up here, even though it's low on the totem pole, let's say, it's still opportunity for us to work with our bodies and use that content to better align us. So, the higher the percentage, the more immediate, or I should say, maybe the less we've been working on it on our own. So perhaps that our client has been working on things within her life, and maybe, maybe her life is, she eats well, exercises, gets out lots of fresh air, gets outside. Maybe there's a lot of things that are going on already within the life of this person that supports the body properly. And so of course things are going to be low in terms of percentage, right? So I love this, how, we can almost kind of tell if they're up there in the 80s and 90s, we got some work to do, and that's okay. That's not wrong. It's not bad. It's just that this is great content. Information is such a blessing to me anyway. I love information.
Yeah, and I love, Ken, that you touched on, that focus statement, because I have so many people that get caught there, like I had a lady who was really grieving and she was like, well, what am I in the Grace Resonance with? I'm grieving, so she was worried about doing the scan, but it's what you're focused on, not so much what you're seeing there. So I love that you clarified that, and the fingerprint, that's just there to start it. And it also brings your attention to what you're doing, because you can't just like throw it there and go make tea, right? You have to be there present with what you're doing. So I love that you included that in here.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to give you a little teaser for next week in terms of the recipe. So what you just saw that we did, let me go back to the client, the house. I click on clients and we'll pick up our client here. And at the top of the page on the far right, I click on those three little lines, and now I can show lists. See that? And here are all of the lists of the scans that we just did. So, so now I can go back to these lists and I can take a look at, in order of priority, how it was outlined. And the reason I write this down, because if you notice, it's in reverse order. So we start, the first scan we did is at the bottom of the page, by the way, and then so on up the page. So it's in reverse order. So sleep programs was the first highest priority page that it found. And the content on that page would be, of course, the highest priority in alignment necessity. So if we go with the recommendations from Healy, no more than say 3 to 4 programs per day, we have 5 lists here of up to 5 programs per list. In other words, a potential for 25 different transmissions that we can work with this client. So we'll talk about how we utilize this to interact with this client, maybe over the next week or 10 days with this information. Okay.
Right.
All right. Well, I'm going to stop sharing. And of course we can do Q&A if you wish.
Okay, thank you, Ken. I'm going to stop the recording here.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Kawipu. I love you.
Yes,
Thank you,
you.
Ken.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.